Listeners, party happening tonight. Launch party 4.
NAPALM HEARTS.
And we were just speaking to.
This is Seamus Heffernan.
And again, congratulations on your debut novel.
Thanks. You can order it directly through my website, SeamusHeffernan.com, or you can get it through Amazon. Just look up my name or NAPALM HEARTS, and you should be able to find it, no problem. Or if you're going to be joining us at the launch party, we will have copies of the book there, and we'll save you a couple of bucks and the shipping time. You can get one there for $10. Cash only, unfortunately, but you'll get to have it in your hand right away, and you'll even get to have it signed.
You are now listening to the Artsindy Crossroads show. Here's Suk-Yen Lee, host for CBC's Definitely Not the Opera and former VJ for Much Music.
I just Googled Nick Panu online, and I'm just trying to get a visual image of this person I'm talking to, you.
You can go to YouTube.
You're in a room pretending you're Marlon Brando, and you're asleep on you're asleep on your laptop.
One Garo, Stargate Atlantis.
Nick, and if you personally keep supporting the film like you have, then it'll all go great. So thanks again.
Gary Shaw.
Voice of Optimus Prime.
Transform and roll out.
You know, culture and art and expression are fundamental to that essence of life.
It does take some strength, and it does take the skin of a rhino sometimes. You know, it's worth it. It really is. It's worth it.
Film, theater, music, the arts. Listeners, right now we are sitting here with
Seamus Heffernan, author of NAPALM HEARTS.
And the big party is happening this Tuesday night. The show's airing today. Tuesday,
April 24th, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. at Alumni Hall in Building B at the UFV Abbotsford campus.
And, so Seamus, this project, how long were you writing in the process of writing this?
Well, the very first scene in the book I wrote about 7 years ago. I woke up early on a Saturday morning. I was tinkering around on my laptop, and I had this idea. And I finished the first 1,000 words, and I said, oh, okay, that's not terrible. And then I always intended to kind of build on it. But, as often happens when you let it, life gets in the way. And my life took a couple of different twists and turns, and I shelved it for a long time. Always went back to kind of pick at it, but then had to shelve it again. And then I guess it was in the last couple of years I really kind of re-engaged with it and decided to kind of go all in. So.
Yeah, we're gonna delve in obviously to the story, the plot. Okay, it's about a detective, a private investigator, and usually it's about infidelity, spouses, wives, husbands, their infidelity, and then he gets bored, and there's this one case that he has to sink his teeth into. What inspired you for this? What was out there? A newscast? You watched a miniseries, or?
Well, I lived in London for a long time, and I've always thought if I wanted to build a story, particularly a crime story, London was going to be the locale. And I think what inspired me, and what I think comes through with the protagonist Thaddeus in the book, is he's an American investigator working there, and I was a Canadian who ended up working there, and I very much felt like an outsider quite a bit. I mean, I had great friends, and I really enjoyed it, but you always felt like you were the other in a way, and that's something that kind of comes through with Thaddeus. And so when I started thinking about building the story, I think what inspired me was writing from the point of view of someone who is in the middle of British society, and particularly Thaddeus has to engage with the higher echelons of it, and consistently feels that he does not understand it at all. So,
yeah, I don't want to push this, but kind of piqued our interest, the listeners and myself. What happened to you that made you want to really delve into this story?
Yeah, I think, there was a certain darkness to the story, even though I think there's a little bit of, perhaps a hint of hope and redemption at the end. I lived in London for 5 years. and I was in a long relationship, and it ended pretty badly. And so for about a year there, I was definitely feeling really isolated and down, just not getting better. And there's no worse feeling in the world than feeling all alone when you're in one of the biggest cities on the planet. It's very, very painful and certainly very isolating. And so when I was building this story, and I could hear Thaddeus in my head talking to me a little bit, he was channeling a lot of that, a lot of that hurt and a lot of that urban isolation that he was going through. And I decided to stop fighting it, and I embraced it. And that's kind of where the story started to take off.
You mentioned that initially the ideas started pouring out like 7 years ago. Then you sat on it and went back to it. It's interesting for a writer when you let something sit there. You let it sit there, right? And then, something happens though too. Like if you're in that groove, you just want to keep putting it out there. You're gonna do it. When you let it sit there, something interesting happens. Like, did you notice that when you went back, there was kind of a different angle, different turn?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question, because you're absolutely right. When you're in the middle of it and everything's just flying, you'll find yourself going into much different directions and tangents. You kind of trust that process. I read a great interview with the novelist George Saunders recently, and he made this fantastic point about how he doesn't like to overplan. He doesn't trust overplanning with writing, because he says that denies you the opportunity to kind of get lost in the moment and find stuff that you normally wouldn't even have done if you're just sitting down and trying to meticulously sketch out your whole plot and your whole story. So the book is actually way different now than it was when I first kind of envisioned it. The ending is different. The certain themes are completely different with it, and it's really because of what you acknowledge, that if you let something sit, it's not the same as just barreling through it at a mile a minute.
And you write better in the morning or in the evening? Like some people, they jump out of bed, and like I've talked to musicians, and it's like the best time for them. So
I always look at the actual. I have a theory that most writers actually hate the process of writing. They love the finished product, but we always find ways to procrastinate and kind of push it off. I'm fortunate in the sense that when I sit down and I get going, I like that part, but it's the getting started part that's always a bit of a challenge. So my attitude has always been, I treat it kind of like the gym. I have to carve out a certain amount of time per week that I'm going to dedicate to this, if I'm going to take it and myself seriously. So to answer your original question, most of my writing happens later in the day, usually after my day job, and somewhat begrudgingly. But that's the only way that you're going to get through it. So there you are.
Your book has been getting a lot of good reviews. A lot of the critics they're giving positive reviews. They've talked about the human element. Was that a conscious decision, or that's just kind of how it came about? That's kind of the sensibility you have?
Yeah, I think that that was never really the plan necessarily. Again, you just kind of trust the process, and you follow you follow your instincts and hope it leads you to a good place. I think the people have been kind enough to like the book and have talked about the human element. I think they're talking. I think they're talking about the relationship between Thaddeus and his friend Charlotte. There's a certain will they, won't they kind of sensibility there, but they're both very strong, independent people, and flawed people. Thaddeus especially. I think that Thaddeus's battles with his ex and his child. I think that I think that's very relatable. I think genre fiction gets a really tough rap sometimes. People think that it's just simple ABC stories, and this is a genre book. It's a crime story, it's a detective novel. If you like that kind of stuff, hopefully you will enjoy this. But the fact is that you can have a piece of genre fiction that still explores a bit more of the heavy emotional themes that so-called so-called serious writers would be given credit for.
That's kind of great to know, especially this day and age, that people want to write about those things, and readers are engaged with personal relationships.
And you're right. I think that you got to have a little bit of heart, to hook people, but you also have to write a story. you want to keep the pages turning, and I think there's a balancing act between that. You want to give people a great ripping yarn that they're going to enjoy talking about at a book club or throwing in their luggage to take to the beach or whatever. You want to make that fun for them, but you also want to give them characters that they're sympathetic to, because that's the whole point of any kind of fiction, really. Let's take some people and let's make you care about them, and then let's make their lives a living hell and see if they get out of it. That's any story right there.
Is that kind of similar to the hero's journey, like Rocky? Like, not so much similar, but maybe not so much the hero's journey. Like,
I think it's even simpler than that. I literally think that any story in the world is you have a hero, a protagonist who wants a thing, and then the story is about all the stuff that gets in his way of accomplishing that whatever that thing is. And if it's a bigger story with multiple characters, their journeys are all that thing. It's all about, we want to get one thing and something's just trying to stop us. And, if you tell a good enough story and you give people a reason to care about that protagonist or journey, then you're more than halfway there, I'd say.
Yeah, not to give away your secrets, but I went to short story workshops. I live in New West. There's another one coming up, and it's the same theme from the last one I went to about character flaws. So when you're writing a story, do you actually, I don't know if you storyboard like film, but so like you have your characters, and is it like when you let your story sit there, you go back to them and you're thinking of flaws, like to make them relatable to the readers, or believable?
I don't know. Yeah, that's another really good question, and I think I definitely put more time into building the story and the plot that you talked about, like how you kind of progress that. I think the believability and the relatability of the characters comes through if you're able. The first thing is you have to portray them as realistic human beings in this world that you've created, and that's why it's so important to have that consistency with both the characters and their choices throughout. What would this person do in this situation? And then it progresses to the next step, the next step, the next step. I'm absolutely ruthless when I write. The book itself, I think, is less than 50,000 words. I'm not interested in a lot of fluff. I'm not interested in a lot of tangents, however tempting that they may be. If a scene isn't telling you something about a character or moving the story along, no matter how pretty it is, it's got to go. So I guess you said if I not to give away my secrets, I don't think there's I don't think that's a secret. I think that's a real common approach that any writer would take. Is you have to make sure that your characters are believable and consistent. And that's where their humanity is going to come through, from the choices that they make, especially choices they make when they are under pressure and the stakes are very high. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Again, going back to the reviews, great reviews for this book. There's unexpected twists and turns which will engage the readers. They won't be bored. Main characters looking for a challenge. And there's a human element in there. I guess readers don't want to. I don't want to give away the story, but
we can talk generally about the story.
But the main character, like, is a private investigator, and he gets dragged into an immoral underworld.
I think it's
is it amoral?
Yeah.
Why did I put immoral? Oh. I gotta fix that thing, because when he
it's okay.
Sorry, amoral underworld.
Yeah. It's like you said before, our protagonist, Thaddeus. He's doing pretty good. He's a bit jaded with his line of work, and it's kind of easy to say why. It's got to be tough making money. Confirming people's worst fears about the people they love, i.e., they've betrayed you. And it kind of makes sense when you learn a little bit more of his background, how he ended up in that, and why he's probably both good at it and why he also is starting to hate it a little bit. So when there is one of the great tropes of detective fiction is the rich client comes along with this outlandish or unique case, and so if you're going to write a story like this, you got to kneel at the altar of Raymond Chandler or Dashiell Hammett, which I think I did with the inciting incident here. There's no use pretending otherwise that you have to thank your influences. And because he takes the case, because what happens is this guy, Mr. Claymore, is this very rich, influential member in British high society, but he's married a much younger and much hard-partying younger woman, and she's gone missing. And he finds out some circumstances about her missing, and both the combination, I think, of Claymore's vulnerability, despite his wealth, and the danger that this girl might be in, kind of convinces Thaddeus that, yeah, let's go for this. And it unfortunately plunges him into a pretty dark corner of London's underworld, and an upper class who are getting in way over their head and a lot more trouble than they're ready for.
Yeah, I've read the story, and yeah, I'm not going to give it. Obviously, I'm not going to give it away. Listeners can get a copy of the book. Before we get into the details, the launch party, the editor, the publishing company, who'd you approach, or who approached you?
Okay, well, when I finished the book and bounced it off a few friends for their feedback and notes, I sent it to if you're unpublished, there's really two ways that you can go about getting published. The first is you write a book and you send it to agents, and you hope that an agent takes you on. An agent can kind of get you in with some of the bigger houses. They've got connections that you as a new writer probably don't have. The other way is you can look at some smaller publishing houses who take manuscripts from unagented writers, unsolicited. And I decided to go with option 2, so I did up a full list. I think I still have an Excel spreadsheet somewhere with all this on it, of a bunch of different independent publishers pretty much all over the world who would be interested in working with a book like mine. And shortly afterwards, a publishing house called Crooked Cat, run by Steph and Lawrence Patterson. They're based in France, but they're veterans of the publishing scene from their time in London. I don't know, maybe the setting of the novel hooked them. They were kind enough to get in touch, and they said that they liked the book and they wanted to work with me. And after the toing and froing, contract was signed, and here we are. And now we're 2 days away from the party, and hopefully it's a good one.
What's the launch party going to be like? I've never been to a book launch party.
Me neither.
Like I've heard about them, but I never got the chance to. Never ended up. Yeah.
Well, you know how some kids they thought about, wouldn't it be great to score the overtime Stanley Cup winning goal? Or some kids thought, I can't wait to graduate and be a veterinarian or something like that. I always wanted to grow up and be a writer. So for me, this is my Stanley Cup overtime winning goal day.
Oh yeah.
And so what we've done with the party is we've spread a wide net. A big thank you to everybody at UFE alumni. They've been so supportive of both the project and giving their time for the venue. So we're going to have a big crowd. We'll have some wine, some light refreshments. We're scheduled from 6 to 8 p.m. on that night, so from about 6:30 to 7. We have a couple of people speaking, someone from the UFE alumni. Dr. Amanda McCormick, she's the acting director at the criminology department. She'll be introducing me. I'll do a brief reading from the book and a lengthy thank you to a number of people who deserve gratitude for this project. We'll have a brief Q&A because some people have read the book by then or probably just want to enjoy the opportunity to embarrass me or put me on the spot. And then we'll network and mingle, and then there's going to be an after party following which at Town Hall, downtown Abbotsford. And everybody's welcome to join us and hang out.
Launch party starts at 6:30, right?
6.
6 o'clock at UFE.
Yeah. The launch party will take place on April 24th. That's Tuesday, which I think is probably the day this is airing, isn't it?
Yeah, tonight.
And so 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock in Alumni Hall in Building B. That's right next to the registrar's office. It's going to be a good time.
So listeners, you don't want to miss that party happening tonight. Actually, the launch party and then the after party.
Yeah.
The
after party will be at Town Hall Public House in downtown Abbotsford.
And be safe, be responsible, listeners, when you're driving from UFE campus to the town hall meeting. Maybe I'll cut that out. That sounds kind of cheesy.
Could I mention how people can get the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, that's all right. If you're interested in ordering the book, you can order it directly through my website, SeamusHeffernan.com, or you can get it through Amazon. Just look up my name or NAPALM Hearts, and you should be able to find it, no problem. Or if you're going to be joining us at the launch party, we will have copies of the book there, and we'll save you a couple of bucks and the shipping time. You can get one there for $10. Cash only, unfortunately, but you'll get to have it in your hand right away, and you'll even get to have it signed.
Wow, that's an awesome deal. Listeners, party happening tonight. Launch party for
NAPALM Hearts.
And we were just speaking to.
This is Seamus Heffernan.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. This was great. I really enjoyed this. Thanks a lot for making the time, guys.
And again, congratulations on your debut novel.
Thanks. Yeah, it's gonna be great. We'll sell tens, just tens of them. It's gonna be fantastic.
It's the way that we rock when we do it like this. Fuji la la, it's a natural high that the refugees bring. Come on, I said, ooh la 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 la. So easy, so easy. Sometimes, girl, you gotta watch out, watch out. Watch out, watch out. Watch out, watch out, baby. Watch out, watch out. Watch out, watch out. Oh, baby. Watch out, watch out, baby. Ooh. You know you better watch out. Some girls are lonely about that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing. Oh, girls, you know you better watch out. Some guys are lonely about that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing, that to the hook one time, come on. Girls, you know you better watch out. Some guys are lonely about that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing. Girls, you know you better watch out. Some girls are lonely about that thing, that thing, that thing, oh, that thing, that thing, that thing. So make a lot of noise for my friend Olivia. She's in a group called Soul Tree. You guys should Google her. There's a little impromptu for you. Alright, that's some noise. So I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is David Morin. I have some CDs for sale. They're only $10, and I was selling them for £7 in London. I just got back on Thursday, so I gotta readjust that. £7 if you have that, that'd be great. But if not, $10 will do. And there's 7 songs of pure baby making music on there, so get it in. You know what I'm saying? Here we go, let's do another one. The song is called Life Goes On. Do it like 1, 2, 3.